Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's PAVE Coffee Chat panel discussion, Retail for the Roaring 20s. Please join me in welcoming our moderator for today's discussion, Hemant Chavan. Mr. Chavan is the co-founder of Brik and Clik, an omnichannel retail marketplace. Prior to launching Brik and Clik, Hemant has over 12 years of experience working in real estate development. He works on a portfolio of $4.1 billion working in which includes high-rise condominium and multifamily residential, commercial office, retail, industrial, and infrastructure projects in the Northeast, California, and Seattle. His expertise lies in development management and cost and risk management. He is also involved in sourcing, underwriting, and structuring real estate deals, as well as the pre-construction, construction, and closeout phases, including marketing and sales. Hemant has a master's in civil engineering from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and is a registered professional engineer. Hemant is a member of the Urban Land Institute, New York Building Congress, American Society of Civil Engineers, and a global shaper with Arcadis. At the conclusion of today's chat, we'll be hosting a brief Q&A. Please send in your questions using the Q&A button found at the bottom of your screen. Now I will turn it over to you, Hemant.
Thanks, Nikki. Really appreciate it having me on this call, and really want to thank all the panelists for your time for this chat. It's been in the works for a month now, and also appreciate everyone joining in today. Just a quick overview of what we're talking today. Retail's been front and center in the news, and obviously post-pandemic, it's going through different adjectives, be it resilience, reinvention, resurgence, or even resurrection, right? So we're looking at it as physical spaces, and everyone here kind of feels somewhat attached to retail from their different walks of life. I personally feel like retail is a medium and a catalyst for human interaction. We've all gone through these different waves of virtual fatigue, but technology is essential, and that's where, as we talked about today, how the future of retail is being designed, technology and the amalgamation with physical spaces is something that everyone is looking forward to. So with that said, I'm going to hand it off to one of our panelists to introduce themselves. Anne, do you want to go and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Hemant. I'm Anne Mezzenga. I'm one of the co-founders of OmniTalk, a content platform that's dedicated to this very topic, talking about the future of retail and the people, company, and technologies that are shaping that future. Prior to that, I was an executive working at Target on their Store of the Future concept. Thanks for having me.
Brandon? You're on mute, buddy.
There you go. Cool, there we go. Hey everybody, I'm Brandon Singer. I am the founder and CEO of a company by the name of Mona, M-O-N-A, stands for Making of a New Age, and is the retail renaissance and empowering it. We're retail real estate advisors. I launched the company with my co-founder in the middle of COVID in September. We've been at it about almost 7 months now, representing both landlords and their retail real estate requirements and marketing space, and also tenants and occupiers of retail space, helping them negotiate and secure leases for their stores.
Brian?
Cool. Hey guys, my name is Brian Folmer. I'm the founder and CEO of FirstLook, which is a subscription box full of emerging consumer brands for early stage investors. So best way to think of us is we're a Shark Tank in a box. Before this, my career spans working at 2 different startup accelerators, taking another startup through an accelerator, and then did about 5 years of corporate retail at Abercrombie and Victoria's Secret's home offices.
Karen?
Hi, I'm Karen Strack. I work for Unibail-Rodamco-Westfield, and I lead the marketing efforts for the US portfolio. At Westfield, we see ourselves as leaders on the forefront of the industry. We do development and operation of shopping malls and mixed-use destinations, and we're really there to support local economies and the community which the individuals go shopping. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Kate?
Hi, I'm Kate Lee. I'm a senior associate vice president at CallisonRTKL in Seattle office, working as a lead designer in our global retail studio. Nice to meet you all, and thanks for joining us today.
Mark, you're mute.
Hi, I'm Mark Tilsizian, founder and CEO of Xteros. We use computer vision and AI to understand the full customer journey. So how many mothers with baby carriages walk by your storefront, engage with the window display, come in the store, engage with products all the way to a purchase. Understanding the full journey allows retailers to choose where to open new stores, how to merchandise, market, run promotions, and how to optimize store operations.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Again, just a power pack group here. Really appreciate you guys again contributing your time. So just want to start off with like a 60,000 feet view of what's going on with retail and especially on the leasing side of things. Of course, it's gone through a fundamental shift pre-COVID and post-COVID now and going into 2021. Brandon, what's your takeaway on the high streets?
So it's very interesting. So I've been here in New York City for the vast majority of this entire disaster of COVID and have seen really, the streets like we all did, if you're in New York or presumably wherever you are, going from literally nothing happening, no one on the streets, just vast emptiness all over the place, to this past summer, when although it was definitely strange and, there was still a lot of closed stores and restaurants, at least people were starting to eat outside and it was warm out in New York. So people were walking around, even though they had masks on. It felt a little bit more normal to getting back into this past fall and winter, which was just, it was just terrible. Every single store on every high street was closed. There was no one on the streets. What we've seen in the past, literally less than 1 month, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks, what is this like very defined and clear uptick in velocity of tenants out there looking for space, specifically in neighborhoods, Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Tribeca, West Village, East Village, things that are service types of tenants looking for space to cater to people that live there. The high streets, to answer your question, Hemant, the Fifth Avenues of the world, the Broadways and Sohos of the world, 34th Street, because of the lack of tourism in New York and the lack of, people coming here that don't live here, and frankly, people that are commuters not coming here to go to work, it's almost as if the high streets just have zero velocity. There's just nothing going on. There's a few tenants poking around, looking for space, opportunistically looking to snag deals. But the vast majority of the high streets, with the exception of a few, owners are just not transacting at the numbers as to which the marketplace is telling them. They're, trying to hold out and sort of hope for the best that when tourism and office workers come back, their belief will be that deals will come back and tenants will come back, start paying, more than 10 cents on the dollar as it relates to where rents were pre-COVID. So that's sort of where we are specifically to New York. But, to answer your question, in Miami, where we're working on stuff, it's the exact opposite. Miami's on fire. And, it has been on fire this entire time. Design district you can't find space there. Something hits the market, it flies off the shelves. Lincoln Road space is starting to fill in. There was about, 4 or 5 deals done in the past month or two. So I think it just depends where you are. Again, sitting in New York, it's definitely challenged, but other cities I think are in a little bit better shape.
And that seems like the trend where it's going through different waves in different cities. Karen, what are you seeing on the shopping centers world?
We've seen new and existing brands looking to open pop-ups, pilot new concepts, showcase collaborations, just test the marketplace, which that's been something that's really been accelerated since kind of this post-COVID period. Lucky for us, this trend really does align with our strategy because we are hyper-focused on finding dynamic new first-to-market uses that serves the community. But I think that the pop-up market is something that we're going to see continue to grow, and I think it's going to stay, which is exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we part of what Brik and Clik started was basically during the pandemic, taking advantages of these prime shopping centers. And if anything's thrived during the pandemic, it's been big box. And what have you seen in terms of like big term strategy from the retailers?
Yeah, I mean, I think I can speak specifically from Target's perspective. I mean, one of the reasons why they were so successful, them and Walmart and others during the pandemic, is that they were, one, the only place open, and they were a one-stop shop. And luckily for Target, I mean, it was not like Target made this shift within the last year to making stores have things like curbside pickup to, online order pickup to, food and produce being picked up. That has been years in the making. It just kind of was perfect timing for them to be able to launch that at the same time. But actually, we're starting to see this trend. Target's announced that actually today, and Walmart too, that they're looking for industrial spaces. So Target just opened a mixing center here in Minneapolis that's in the middle of a warehouse section. Like there's not any, it's not close to the stores, but it's centrally located in the city, which allows them the opportunity now to have ship drivers and based on what we've been able to dig up, actually have customers come and drive into a warehouse and use this exclusively as a pickup only opportunity versus, driving to a store and dealing with the store and a pickup opportunity.
So sounds like omni-channel and new concepts are some of the biggest takeaways that we're seeing, which were kind of teetering on the threshold maybe before COVID, and this has just kind of accelerated that. I mean, I guess going into what we were talking about, the resurrection or reinvention of the pivot, what are like one or two factors that would be vital for this revitalization, right? Kate, I want to like bring you in on more on the design side, and obviously some of the pop-up concepts are very design heavy. So what have you seen, or what do you think are some of the key contributors for this revitalization?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the digital element and all those omni-channel aspect is going on during this time. But I do think the basic, factors can be like more experiences and in-store services are still important because you cannot get those from home or online shopping. So we're human, and people still want to browse things in person and want to touch, want to see, and look at all different options there. So I think the Brik and Clik is a good example that we worked on together, which happened to be in your background on your screen. I think it's a good example. Brik and Clik has all those DTC brands. So this, the Brik and Clik store in California became like a house of good product where consumers can come in and try different things and also get inspiration. So they come looking for this one product, and then they get a bunch of other products that's related to what you're looking for. So those experience and in-store services still are the keys in the retail store environment, I think.
Yeah, the multi-brand format really helps when you're walking in there, discovering brand, and you find a complementary brand. And we tell our brands like, hey, you should be testing retail before you go into, say, a Target, which is the mecca of a multi-brand concept. So, and like I know a lot of these 2C brands get into retail or want to get into big box. Like, what's like key for them to entering something like a Target or one of the big boxes?
Well, I think that one of the biggest, I guess, changes or shifts that we've seen, and something that's important for D2C brands, is they're thinking about going into, 1,400 stores for Target or 4,000, 5,000 stores for Walmart. Are you ready to scale? Are you in a position where your customers are going to Target already? Like, are you a trip driver for them? I mean, one of the biggest changes that we saw is that this idea that fulfillment is actually driving purchases. It's not about what the product is. Like, people want to know when they can get it before they care whether or not you have that blue sweater or not. Because if you don't, there's other people they can go to. And that decision is really driving them and is really causing, I think, a kind of ripple effect across the rest of the industry. We were talking about Harry's last week specifically, and how, just that category, just shave alone, and having people, stop going to Target because they're having their razors shipped directly to them, has had a ripple effect on basket size for Target, because that was a trip driver. Pet food is another huge category. And now, like, food and beverage has seen the highest online penetration throughout the pandemic than it ever has. And so when things start going away from these one-stop shops, you got to figure out how, I think you are providing value as a direct-to-consumer brand to kind of bring them back in, and then to spend other money in the space.
That's so on point on what we're seeing. We started with like wellness and clean beauty in San Francisco, and then added home goods, food and beverage, because that's where the trends were and that's where the consumptions were. And we saw a big dip in apparel in 2020. I know it's kind of coming back, but like Annie was saying, CPG, fitness, and home goods have seen these growth spurts. I want to bring Brian in. Brian, you're in the forefront of these trends and working with one of the most exciting brands, even with in your previous like at XRC and now with FirstLook. What have been your key takeaways in terms of consumer behavior and even investor feedback?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a loaded question, just for the sense that not all customers are the same. So you have the first movers, the innovators, and the first movers, or early adopters. Then you have the early majority adopters, the late majority, and then the laggards. So each of those classes, or each of those groups of people, kind of have different preferences, or at least things that are important to them. And then on top of that, you also have the difference between like the city dwellers, like myself here in New York, versus people that are more maybe out in the suburbs, or even further out from there, and they all have different preferences. So, beyond the usual suspects of convenience and, great value prop, I think one theme that I've noticed that's kind of holds true for everyone is just a feeling of validation. So, consumer psychology says that it takes several times for us to hear something for it to kind of start sticking. And then now with social media becoming such a huge part of our daily lives, it's nice to see, your friend buying the same product. It kind of validates it for you, like, oh, like if they're behind it, then it must be a good product. So yeah, having those validation points, I think, is super important from just like a, user generated content perspective. On the investor side, those investors, they're looking for those exact data points, or those moments, or those points where you feel like you're like, this brand is going somewhere. They have the velocity, it's working, people are buying it. And yeah, really it comes down to like, how quickly are things evolving for you? How quickly are you opening or getting into new stores? How fast are your, packs selling out? And all those things rolled up kind of give the investor a good feeling, or a not good feeling, that you're doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of hits home in so many ways. We have one brand, I can give an example, which I think they launched a year and a half ago. They were in our Bay Area store, they're in the Oculus store, and they're rolling out to 750 Target store. They just announced it last week. So it's interesting to see like some brands, when they do take that leap of faith with retail, it does pay off, and it's basically a great testing point. On the investor side, I mean, everything's about scalability, right? And stores have to now become more digital than ever, and smart retailers are adopting all different technology. So Mark's our tech guru here. You're on the forefront of adopting and pivoting mobility sensors to track in-store traffic patterns. Like, what have your key takeaways? I know it's difficult when there's less foot traffic or in the stores right now, but I mean, what informed decisions are retailers making?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually even more interesting now that patterns are changing. So yeah, I guess the main thing that I've learned is that you can understand your customers better in the physical store, not only in a way that's analogous to e-commerce, but actually you can learn more about your customers and how they're shopping. So for example, if your men's department is not doing well at a particular store, is it because the mall doesn't have much male traffic? Or is it because the men that walk by are not engaging with your window display and then not coming into your store? Or is it because they're just not finding their way into the back of the store where you have the men's section? And then another example would be, how do you run promotions? So, or marketing campaigns. So we work with Lindt chocolates. So it was fun to watch the traffic patterns during pre and post Valentine's Day. So we're definitely able to see the traffic and the demographic shift. And actually you see the traffic and the demographic patterns change exactly 2 weeks before Valentine's Day. You can see that change of people coming in to make their Valentine's Day purchases. For 2 weeks you see that, and then you see a very different pattern the next week that you don't really see. You have much lower female traffic for exactly 1 week right after Valentine's Day, and the lowest female traffic you kind of see all year. So it's interesting, but also this can tell us how we're going to run promotions. When does the traffic return back to normal? So the next weekend, that next Saturday, it returned right back to the normal patterns that we were seeing during the rest of the year. So when you're running these promotions, marketing campaigns, you have much more insight into what you're doing rather than just using this single data point, which is a sales number.
Yeah, and then if you zoom out and if you get those informed decisions, even simple as how you're merchandising your storefront, instead of just trial and error, see what sticks. If you know who that demographic is, you're faster. I remember talking to you about that. It was just like much more quicker, informed, and less trial and error when it comes to those decisions. And even like zooming out, like how is the street pattern traffic looking like, how it like has a ripple effect on the overall businesses.
Yeah, you need to be measuring. You need to be measuring these things so that you have feedback.
No, for sure. Well, I try to stay away from buzzwords, and experiential has, it gets really clouded these days. And what really is experiential and what's not? Is it like Instagram spaces, Instagrammable spaces, or is it more like touch and feel or digitizing stores? So what would draw customers inside in the store of the 20s, right? Kate, I would like, obviously you're in the forefront of all the retail design that's happening. How do you look at experiential store designs?
Well, I think the retail world has been actually expanding the spectrum for the way of shopping. It's not just come and buy product anymore. It can be something related to the brand and product, but something unexpected. So I've seen many retail, big brands are doing something unexpected, like some theatrical setting or gallery type stores that provides more fun elements to the consumers. And also there are many brands doing pop-up stores, especially during pandemic. And this can show the brand concept or brand identity in multiple different ways that can change every time. So consumer can feel the difference between brands and also understand what's the experience that this brand wants to tell you. And also I've noticed there are many mobile truck stores are going on, visiting your own town that can draw customer actually back to the actual stores. So I think this experiential retail gets even bigger and bigger and getting popular. And I think it's showing it's working for the consumers.
Kate, I agree completely. I think that consumers are looking for an immersive shared experience. I can tell you, just, anyone coming out of hibernation is looking for that IRL experience. And I think it's really, really critical. And I think retailers are focused on creating these enterprising experiences because they know that it's got to be that competitive advantage, and them taking an opportunity to do a pop-up of some magnitude helps them hone on what that experience could actually be. And it can really complement the brand experience wholeheartedly. So I'm with Kate completely on her comments.
Yeah, but Brandon, have you seen any experiential concepts coming here in the high streets here in New York City or even in Miami?
Yeah, there's been, look, to your point, experiential is a word that's thrown out, a lot now, and it seems like, it's like when a landlord asks a broker, oh, so what type of tenant's going to take my space? It's always, oh, experiential. Like that's just like the new word that everyone uses. But look, the challenge with experiential is that, typically the traditional word, the one I use, is that there needs to be people that are congregating in a setting that are looking to go out and do something together. So until that kind of comes back more in full circle and full swing, I don't think you'll see a lot of those types of tenants out there expanding. But as it relates to any brand in today's day and age, it's all about the brand experience and someone having that kind of comfortable, someone being the average consumer walking into the store and having that comfortable type of feeling that they can go into the store and experience the brand, that they may go, have something delivered to their house the next day or later in the week. They find that the experience for them walking into that store was great. So I can tell you that a lot of the luxury tenants, the Madison Avenue tenants, the tenants that would be in Meatpacking District here in New York, certain parts of Fifth Avenue, you're starting to see those types of tenants look for space and frankly, take advantage of an incredibly weakened market, the most tenant-friendly market of all time, probably in New York, where the concessions from landlords are just like nothing we've ever seen before. And the smart tenants, the savvy ones that believe in the future of retail and believe in brick and mortar are the ones that are taking advantage of it. I'd say the luxury is probably, as a category, the most obvious example of that.
Yeah, from what I've heard, luxury retail has just like taken off during the pandemic. Even in suburban malls or tier 2 malls in New Jersey, it's just like the coaches of the world have been just killing it. Well, with experiential, there's always a lot of technology and there's a lot of in-store tech, which is the future. Omnichannel, of course, is where things are heading. And even with digital brands, people are so used to just having that, having technology at the palm of their hand, which makes it they want that experience in store, right? So let's kind of just, figure out which technologies and play a little game called Survive or Die. So basically, I'm going to throw out a bunch of different technologies, and we want to like fast forward to 2030 and see if these guys are going to be around, right? So the first one is QR codes and NFC tags or anything that you can, it's like scannable mobile technology. And what do you think,
Die.
Brandon? All right, I'm just going to skip Brandon, go to Brian.
You're on mute, Brian.
It'll eventually die.
Karen?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna last.
Kate?
Agree with everyone.
Mark?
Yeah, agreed. It's gonna die.
I can give some stats. We have QR codes and all these tags all over the store. We have less than 10% of the people using them. So it's that tells you it's a different experience than a restaurant experience, but it's something you try out and you find out. What about?
Sorry, I know you called me. I didn't answer. Sorry about that. I have an interesting reference point. The leasing signage, even though it's not in a store, it's similar. QR codes are going up on leasing signage, all over the place, and it just doesn't work. People just don't. It's a good idea, but it just doesn't. People just don't do it. So I agree. Not gonna last.
Yeah.
Just in my world in particular.
Okay. I mean, it's a great use case in restaurants, right? Because you have an engaged customer who's there for an hour as opposed to a fleeting customer for a minute or two in a store. So, what about smart mirrors and smart hardware, lockers, everything smart on a wall? And
Oh, I'm going to say lockers will survive and mirrors will die.
Brandon?
I think they're both here to stay. I think it's the way of the world.
Brian?
Yeah, I think both are here to stay.
I agree. I saw some evolutions of the smart mirrors, and I have to say, your ability to maybe like see, your mom in like full vision or tons of family members, things like that, I thought were pretty remarkable. So I'm going to say they're both here to stay.
Me too, both staying.
It'll survive to some extent, but especially the mirrors will get old after a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's an expensive investment, but it's working. You see all if you take it out from just like the business side to the retail side or the consumer side, I think what people at Peloton and everyone's kind of heading towards those hardware technologies. So there's something there. Uh, Digital windows or smart windows. I know it's a high street type thing.
I'm going to say die.
Wow, and
I know. I know. I'm the downer. No surprise here, guys.
I'm just teasing you.
You can't deny people's own devices and what they'll have. I mean, I think that it's just so much simpler for retailers to rely on the consumer's own devices than it is to invest sometimes in this expensive hardware that, let's be real. If you have, if you have an autonomous store going, you don't have a lot of people there working. If something breaks, like, how are you fixing these things? There's just a lot more to it, I think. It's cool, of course, but sorry, I'm the downer.
No, you have great points. It's not even about the hardware, the content. That's the difficult part, is the content. Filling the content is extremely challenging to make it relevant.
Yeah, the production value on these things you don't know, and you're just testing it out and you don't know what's going to work and what's not.
And it's also so expensive, and the second you buy it, it's obsolete. So like, I just don't, to Anne's point, I think you're better off using the customer's technology that's theirs and trying to figure out software that kind of, backends into their devices.
Is there going to be a tie though between like when AR glasses or even AR contacts are like more of a thing, where looking at that window is going to have like a different experience than kind of what we're used to right now? I'm bullish on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
I think including digital windows and actually the traditional windows, all of them, I think it's dying, and it should be. For example, we've done multiple projects that we didn't do any of traditional window setting or digital windows. We actually made the space at the entry point kind of like pop-in store type that can change seasonally or per event. So that's become, like new way of window setting. So that's been very successful. So I would say digital windows or whatever traditional windows will die.
All right.
Yeah, I would say it'll survive in some form. Maybe not how we think of it now.
Format.
Yeah.
All right, that gets us into VR and AR, one of the other buzzwords that's going on.
I'm going to say survive, but less from the consumer facing point of view than the back of house point of view. I think we're seeing a lot of advantages to that technology for operations of a store. And I think that will come to the fore sooner than the front of house or consumer facing VR and AR applications.
I know, Karen, you guys have done some AR marketing things in some of the centers. What's been some of the takeaways there?
Yeah, so we actually did a VR experience, and when we leased our Valley Fair project in Silicon Valley. So you know, it can be hard to sell a vision, especially a $1 billion project to tenants. And so we actually marketed and did an entire VR of that experience. You could visit the restrooms, the valet, you could go see all the spaces. And we saw good success. We have quite a few tenants that have different experiences that continue to engage the younger audiences. And I would imagine that those will continue to evolve. But to piggyback off of what Anne said, I definitely think there are some industries that from a back of house perspective will continue to really embrace this technology. And, you know, even when I think about schools, you know, my daughter didn't dissect an animal, they did it via virtual reality, which was pretty impressive. So I think that you're going to see it coming up in a lot of places that we didn't necessarily imagine last year in the years to come. So it's exciting. I think it's going to stay. It'll continue to evolve.
Well, I think it's gonna stay if it's used by your mobile phone. You know, not those technical, you know, the goggle or things. I think that will not work in the physical store, but everything related to mobile will survive. I think like people wants to use their mobile, so.
That's a great point. I think we want to stress on that. The stores, people are mobile, the stores have to go mobile. If it's any VR, AR technology, it has to be easily, no one's going to come in, and especially when everyone's a little apprehensive about touching products, it's the biggest real estate, like they say, it's your phone right now. So I'm going to jump to live shopping. I know that that's one of the biggest, I guess that's the future in many ways. It's QVC converted into a millennial Gen Z type format. And what have you been seeing in terms of adoption of that? I know it's scaling like crazy right now.
Yeah, I think eMarketer put out a chart today that I saw that was like, for people that are doing live shopping, still in like the lower, 20 to 25% ranges, but the likelihood that they will purchase is in the 80 to 90% after seeing something being live streamed. And I think, China's a great indicator of, I think, what we'll start to see, especially, as US companies, I think, start selling more to the Chinese markets too. I think that there's going to be a lot of crossover, and live shopping is here to stay.
Anyone else, guys?
Yeah, I think live shopping's definitely here to stay. Yeah, it just creates that fun and entertaining aspect that I think a lot of people do go shopping for. I mean, I know malls have obviously died down, but there still is an element of like entertainment when you go shopping. And I think with the live shopping now, that's like kind of then replacing that, or at least scratching that itch for the consumer.
Great. Well, I think that was like a nice take on the different technologies there. And part of the biggest takeaway is like there's so many technologies, there's going to be so many new technologies coming in. So it's a lot of just testing and finding out. Omnichannel has been around for a while. There's a general consensus that moving forward with any retail concept, it's combining that physical and digital experiences. So, and what are some of the latest utilities like on-demand delivery, right? Shopify apps, text marketing, that's synchronizing this omnichannel experience.
So I'm going to let you down again. I'm going to keep my Debbie Downer persona for this conversation. But, I think simply put, to pay off an omnichannel experience for customers, retailers have to invest in the non-sexy things. It's inventory management, it's order management, it's flexible point of sale systems, like these core components to make sure that you can pay off convenience, that when customers are coming into your store, that they're finding the products that you say you have, and that your employees have the tools that they need to be able to fulfill those orders, especially when you're talking about, I think, even these younger brands, the D2C brands that are coming up, like when people find you on Instagram shops and that, you know, you have one opportunity to capture them, they're purchasing from you. And if that order shows up and it's wrong, you've lost them. And with customer acquisition costs being what they are, like you got to have the foundational elements in place before you can really deploy the cool, sexy things like, you know, checkout free shopping or click and collect or last mile delivery and all those other things. So sorry, I'm letting you guys down again. Boring.
No, I mean, part of why I started Brik and Clik was walking into a store and not having the size, and there's an associate who's not trained to like send you, fulfill it through online, get it to you in 2 days, pay for free shipping or whatever. So, like you said, just fulfilling, never lose that customer, right? It's as simple as that. There's a general consensus that US retail is overbuilt and it's going through this natural consolidation. Store closures, like we were hinting earlier, have been just kind of, it's going through this cyclical nature where end of the cycle, the more store closures, more retailers going bankruptcy. But Class A shopping centers like the ones with Westfield, they've been like a hub for brand discovery. What are institutions like yours, Karen, doing to change the narrative around physical retail?
So I'm gonna piggyback off of a little bit of what Anne said, because our vision is to really redefine what retail means in that modern world. And so we're constantly looking at making short and long-term capital investments in our infrastructure so that we can better facilitate those discussions with the retailers so that we can meet those omni-channel evolutions, like Anne was saying. So that we can have third-party services, whether it's deliveries happen or support the idea between building capital infrastructure so that we can have e-commerce, we can facilitate the e-commerce sales from our retailers. That's a big piece of it. They're really struggling with that last mile delivery. How do they actually leverage their store to be a distribution center for themselves as well? And we have an opportunity to really reevaluate what our infrastructure looks like so that we can support those aspects that aren't as sexy to the retailer that are really needed for them to be successful. And so that's really what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. It's really the core foundation of how we look at our business.
Yeah, that's so true, right? That the pivot that's happening, and with all these new D2C brands and DNVB brands entering retail at a record pace, there's always been a low barrier to entry with commerce, e-commerce websites, with and also there's that the customer acquisition cost is going through the roof, and all the brands that I speak to, they want to enter retail. So what are some of the key criteria to keep in mind when brands are looking to enter retail? Brandon, you've worked with a bunch of them or working with a few of them.
The biggest challenge we see as it relates to securing real estate is this, what seems to be a major disconnect between landlords' expectations based on a few things, one of which being the way that they've transacted on deals forever. The second of which, and probably more paramount, is their lenders and partners not allowing them to transact on leases and transactions with tenants that is any way close to reality as to how tenants are looking to structure deals in today's day and age. So I would say that, what I try to advise brands and companies looking for space today is that it's not always, okay, I want to pay X and this is a great location and I'll sign a lease. There's so many other things that go into it. And not understanding that is a humongous challenge that frankly has left certain cities looking like, a retail wasteland, because it's just, you can't, there's just certain things that are just not, the market just resists change. And even throughout COVID, we still see it in New York, where landlords just aren't transacting at sort of the ways that new age modern tenants a lot of the times want to transact today.
Yeah, it's trying to bridge that gap between what online brands see in terms of ease versus the difficulty of physical retail. Karen, are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, so we have a DNVB precinct at our Valley Fair asset, and we've found that supporting that tenant through having POS systems and the fixtures, and it's a plug and play experience for them. There's not a lot of capital investment. So we really try to focus in on the conversation with them about them telling their brand story, them ensuring that they're getting that vision to the consumer, and then testing that marketplace to really understand. And our goal is to create that platform for those first to market players, so that if they have success, it can turn into a longer term lease structure for us. But our cost of entry is quite low when we look at our DMV precinct, and then we mirror that with a lot of our offerings when we have services and amenities that we have in the mall. So we have a rewards program that we have loyal customers that we can market directly to on their behalf. We also have things like instant deals, where we can do push notifications to the shoppers that are in the center that day. And we can really help partner with them so that they can grasp a new audience, and we can look at really building that customer acquisition for them. So I think it's a critical piece for these brands to test the marketplace, and landlords need to create places in order for people to do that.
Well, we're in that precinct, and it's been such a great support for us as a new retailer launching a concept in the middle of Silicon Valley. So, Brian, you talk to these brands. What do they want to enter retail, or what are they talking to you?
Yeah, it's pretty much a given that you have to be omnichannel now and move into retail. But like Ann said earlier, I mean, a lot of the don't get too far away from the basics. Just something as simple as, can you scale when all of a sudden the retailer does want to like add you to 1,400 stores? Like, that's a tall order for some of these new brands. So yeah, ability to scale, I'd say would be important. And then like specifically being on the shelf, like all of a sudden your packaging has to be way better than you thought it was. You can get away with, touching up pictures on your website, things ship, so it's a little different, but like in the store, your packaging has to be top notch, because it has to grab the consumer as they're walking by, and then they're going to hold it and experience it. And then now even further with like Gen Z kind of pushing, well, all of us pushing the envelope on sustainability, is like, what are they going to do with that packaging afterwards? Like, it would be cool to have a story behind your product where, the packaging is compostable, or I've even seen like some brands where like you could, the directions card, you can plant it in your garden and like little seeds pop up. Like it's kind of just like, I don't know, pushing that envelope for a better experience for the consumer. And then also like from like the back end side of things, a lot of these retailers have like promo schedules and just a lot of like things you don't realize are there, as far as like, extra added costs, especially if you go through a distributor. So having strong margins, I think, is super important too, because there's a lot of hidden costs that I think brands miss initially that are required to get into retail.
I mean, I can't tell you more. The packaging side of it helps so much as a new brand. If a customer walks in, they don't know what this product is, the packaging goes so much further along in actually acquiring that customer. Subscription models are everywhere on your phone. Now they're coming into retail. Best Buy just launched Best Buy Beta with their own type of Costco type membership. As we've seen on the digital side, it could lead to like subscription saturation. Would the shopper in 2030 adopt to this over subscription? Or alternatively, what do you think? The retailer knows everything about the customer's consuming habits when they walk into the store, helping them with like smart suggestion? Is that the future, Anne?
I mean, look, we've got marketplaces popping up all over, and subscriptions for everything from Walmart to Best Buy to, it's going to be, I think, something we'll see is probably more combinations or partnerships happening where, what can I get? That's why Instacart is doing so well. Like, how many things can I have delivered with one subscription? And that's, it's the virtual mall or the virtual one-stop shop for people, and who can be that? And it'll just be a race to the finish, I think.
And Mark, like with all this data that we're capturing with, you're subscribing or owning the data of the customer, is this you walk into stores, you're going to get like all these suggestions in 2030?
I think to some extent, yeah, I think the consumer of 2030 will be the most informed and have the strongest preferences of any consumer that's ever existed. And so you need to know what those are, and you need to know who the customers are, what the value proposition is. If the value proposition is there, then you find a way to make that work, depending on your category and the customer. So I don't think it's more complicated than that. I think what won't work is just following after a trending business model, like, okay, we have to do a subscription. You have to know your customers better than that.
So true. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a retail space and it's a physical space, and people want to come out, right? Like, so how are you optimizing them just beyond just a traditional commerce model, right? Like, what's the next invention, this next iteration of this physical store design going to look like?
Well, it's becoming, it's showing, and it's becoming, the stores are becoming like multifunctional spaces. It's like either collaboration of art and shopping, or music and shopping, exercise and shopping, sometimes, food and beverage and shopping, with all those fun activities and experiential things than just shopping, as we discussed. So I think this will still grow and continues. Another fact I like to keep in mind is that sustainability. The research, many researchers shows this, Gen Z and millennials customers are really into well-being, wellness, and sustainability. So how we can incorporate this into the store, and being transparent about how, I don't know, for example, Nike does those, they get the old shoes and then refurbished and then sell it back. So those, circulation can be transparent, and those things actually give the trust of brand back to the consumer, I think. So that will be thing that we can also consider.
Yeah, and Brandon, you mentioned how difficult it is to lease first floor retail now in high streets. Like, what are some of the concepts that you're seeing that want to enter these traditional shops that we haven't seen before?
There's a ton of new, interesting, innovative ideas and concepts, such as Brik and Clik, just in, different ilks, different worlds, different types of retail environments that are out there looking for space, whether it's childcare or it's some sort of new age, like, a hotel / members club kind of thing, or it's just traditional apparel or eyeglasses. It seems like in every different category, there's like one or two new players that are either looking to come up with a great idea to, they have a great deck and they have a great concept and want to expand, or it's something that is has one or two stores already and they're looking to expand. And it's just like, it's endless, really. It's incredibly exciting. I mean, that's frankly one of the reasons we launched this company, because it seems like a renaissance of retail kind of time. The challenge, again, is what I described before, is getting those brands and those founders of those companies to understand what it really takes to transact, to open a store. So that's the challenge. But as it relates to companies looking for space, it's endless.
Yeah, sounds like it's nowhere close to being dead. It's just going through this cyclical change, and I know the debt and bankruptcy catches all the headlines, but behind the scenes, there's a lot of things going on. I know we're coming up to the hour, so on a final note, just want to go around the room and want everyone to describe the next decade of retail in one sentence. I'll start with you, Anne.
I'm going to say content commerce.
Brandon?
Come back to me. I want to think of a really good answer.
All right, Brad, you're up.
I'm going to say absolutely booming until there's a market correction. We're due.
All right. Karen?
I think it's, unfortunately, I think it's just so unknown. I didn't, if you'd asked me 3 years ago if I thought this past year was something that I had seen in the future, I would have said, no, that's just not something that's going to be happening. But so I think it's a really difficult question to sum up in just one sentence. I definitely think there's going to be this evolution of how people shop, learn, live, play, and I think that I think that the generations coming up, at least after myself, are really gonna have a unique opportunity to frame that, inform that for what they would like to see it be in the future.
I mean, live, work, play. Retail is a big component of the play part, right?
I agree with you, Karen and Hemant. If you think about it, retail world has been always ever changing, even before pandemic. It's been always evolving and changing, and it is now, and I think it will continue.
Mark?
Yeah, I think retailers will need to be best in class for something. So they'll become increasingly agile at understanding their customer base and how they're adapting, and they're going to understand that and figure out how to differentiate themselves.
All right, Brandon, back to you.
I don't think it's one word. I don't know if that's what, even if you ask that, but I think it's more embracing change, I think is the answer. I think having to realize that things move so quickly now, and you need to be so far ahead of the curve and constantly changing with the times, or else you're going to get left in the dust. Similar to how a lot of retailers were really slow to adapt to e-commerce, and some of them looked at it as like a competitive thing, not a collaborative thing between the brick and mortar store and the website. And those guys are now all gone for the most part. That type of mentality, not being able to embrace change and change with the times, I think will be, those that don't do that will continue to, disappear. And the ones that do will be the ones that, and whatever change that may be, will be the ones that thrive and continue on.
Spoken like a true Renaissance man. Thank you. All right, I think we're up to the hour. I think we have a minute for Q&A. Anything that you guys see, Dash, or?
Yeah, we've got one question, and then we'll move to a quick announcement before we break. The quick question here for you guys is, aside from what you mentioned, talking about live stream shopping, how are retailers going to rope in Gen Z for apparels, as they don't necessarily relate to going to malls and large stores?
I feel like I need to explain my content commerce comment since it was so brief. And so I'm going to use this as an opportunity to try to redeem myself. I think that one way that we are kind of, I guess, bullish on when it comes to how Gen Z is going to be shopping is through content. So we see YouTube starting to add shopping within platform. Obviously, Facebook and Instagram have been doing this for a long time. And I think that live streaming is a component of that. It's not going to just be the mall experience, but it's everything in and around what that mall experience was for us back in the day. And part of that is content. Brian, you said it, getting validation in the purchases that you're making from other people that you see, whether that's an influencer or your friend who's doing a video in their backyard. The more that we're able to purchase and stay within that place that we're consuming content, I think the more that we're really going to see retail and the definition of a store expanding.
I would agree. I think the next decade will be, we talk about customer and product personalization. I think it'll be the decade of store personalization. So it'll become interesting to the specific customers that are going to go to that store.
I agree with both of you. We started off this conversation by talking about how, people want these immersive experiences, and it's no longer about just selling a product. It's about that experience. But to piggyback off of Anne, it's about the content. The content's what's going to actually start driving the product. And you're going to see this reverse, which is going to be it's going to be a really unique observation to be able to make, to see how people start to take the content and then make product. And you've seen that already with just celebrities and brand names. And you look at something like Kylie, and her name was something, and they created product from that. And that was just solely based upon content and her love of lipstick. And now she has a huge line of beauty products that have huge demand. So you're seeing it already out there. I just think that it's going to accelerate over the next couple of years.
We've got one last question, so I'm just going to ask that one person address it so we can wrap this up as we've gone a little over the hour. But last question. They were surprised to hear you think QR codes will go away. Is this a uniquely American thought as we fall behind the rest of the world where the use of codes is thriving? Do you think American consumers are just unwilling to adapt to the usage long term? So if one person wants to tackle that one.
I'll take that one. I've been in the stores since the pandemic. 2 stores. We've had QR codes literally everywhere. I think it just comes down to it's use. There's a use case for certain aspects, and there's when you're a customer who's in, if it's a new store and they don't know the products, and a QR code is so small in a bigger, like even in a small 3,000, 4,000 square feet space, or a big box like 20,000 square feet space, the QR codes, they get hidden away. And because where there's so much product and so much content in the store, that's not their eyes don't capture that, as opposed to sitting in a restaurant where in the US there's the biggest use for that post COVID. You're an engaged customer. The only way to get to what you want, which is food, is through the menu, and the only way to access that, right? So it's like are you making the QR code an access point? Really at the point of sale it becomes that, but in terms of just the browsing, in the short amount of time that we've been around, it's the engagement's pretty low.
Perfect. Thank you. So I want to thank everyone's time for joining today. We really appreciate it. We do have 2 quick announcements on the PAVE side. So we would appreciate people to continue to support PAVE. And we've got a couple ways that we're doing that right now. We've got a PAVE Virtual 5K that you can sign up for. All proceeds going to benefiting PAVE and our programs such as student aid, financial aid, scholarship programs, design competitions. And we also have a Patron Tequila Buggy raffle, kind of in tune with Cinco de Mayo coming up. So you can purchase raffle tickets to get the things that you see on your screen. Tequila Patron Buggy, tequila, the shakers, the mixers, all that stuff. And you can find out information more about purchasing raffle tickets and signing up for the PAVE Virtual 5K through paveglobal.org. But once again, want to thank everyone here on the panel for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.